Daniel Reeves, a self-made black businessman, built his car dealership empire from nothing. But lately, he's been hearing complaints. Black customers claim they're being overcharged, disrespected, and forced into bad deals. His white employees? They act polite when he visits as the CEO. But what happens when he's just another black man walking in? So today, Daniel dresses down, puts on a worn jacket, and walks in undercover, as a customer. Inside, white salesmen greet white customers with smiles. But when Daniel steps up, "Sir, the used cars are over there," a white manager, Rick Larson, says, assuming Daniel can't afford anything else. Daniel smirks. "Actually, I'm looking for something special." Rick laughs, already judging him. Daniel has seen enough, but he's not done yet. The showroom at Reev Automotive was buzzing with energy. White customers being greeted with warm handshakes, salesmen flashing rehearsed smiles, managers making quick deals. But Daniel Reeves saw through the performance. He knew that when it came to black customers, the tone of this place shifted. He leaned casually against a display vehicle, blending into the background, watching as a young black couple walked in. Their excitement was clear. The husband, wearing a button-up and jeans, squeezed his wife's hand as she pointed at a sleek sedan across the floor. Daniel's eyes drifted to Rick Larson. The white sales manager's smile had been easy and welcoming just moments ago. But as soon as his gaze landed on the black couple, it flickered, then faded completely. Rick adjusted his tie, stepping forward with a forced, polite tone. "You sure you're in the right place?" The husband hesitated, frowning slightly. Yeah. We've been pre-approved for financing." Rick exhaled sharply, barely masking his skepticism. He turned slightly, casting a glance toward his fellow white salesmen. One of them smirked, as if this was some inside joke. "Pre-approved, huh?" Rick's voice dripped with condescension. "Well, we'll see about that. A lot of banks make mistakes." Daniel felt his jaw tighten. He could already see where this was going. He had heard the stories from his black customers, how they were offered worse deals, forced into higher interest rates, or flat-out ignored while white customers got the royal treatment. Rick led the couple toward his desk, where he took their paperwork with exaggerated skepticism. He sighed loudly, shaking his head as he flipped through the pages. "Well, I'm not sure this will be enough for the car you were looking at," Rick said, tapping his pen against their loan documents. The wife's smile faltered. "But the bank approved us." Rick cut her off. "Right, but that's their opinion. Ours is different." The husband frowned. "What do you mean?" Rick leaned back in his chair, smirking. "I mean, we might need to add a few conditions to the loan, to make sure you can actually afford it." Daniel could barely keep his expression neutral. He knew exactly what Rick was doing. Raising their interest rate, adding hidden fees, stretching the loan terms until the monthly payments became unbearable. "Sir," the husband said, clearly trying to stay calm, "this isn't what we were told." Rick shrugged. "It's just business. If you don't like it, you can always go somewhere else." Daniel clenched his fists. This wasn't just a bad deal. It was predatory. It was racist. And it was time for Daniel to step in. The glass doors of Reev Automotive swung open, and an elderly black couple stepped inside. Harold and Linda Carter. They walked slowly, hand in hand, their expressions tight with a mix of hesitation and heartbreak. The reason? The car they were about to trade in was not just any vehicle. It had belonged to their late son, a firefighter who had died in the line of duty. Harold, his silver hair neatly combed, clutched the keys tightly. Linda held a small, framed photo. Their son, smiling in his uniform. They weren't looking for charity. They weren't looking for handouts. They just wanted a fair deal. Rick Larson barely gave them a glance before plastering on his salesman's grin. "What can I do for you folks today?" Linda offered a shaky smile. "We were hoping to trade in our car for something smaller, something easier for us to manage." Rick's eyes flicked to the vehicle outside, an older, well-kept sedan. He instantly lost interest. "That thing? You want to trade that in?" Harold nodded firmly. "Yes. We kept it as long as we could, but we just can't afford the repairs anymore." Rick sighed dramatically, running a hand down his tie. "Well, let's see what we're working with." Daniel, still standing nearby, watching, felt his blood pressure rise the moment Rick walked over to the car. He barely even examined it. Didn't check the mileage. Didn't look at the interior. Didn't even glance under the hood. Instead, he turned back to them with a mocking smile. Look, this thing is old. The best I can do is maybe $1,500. That's generous. Linda visibly flinched. Harold's face tightened. 1,500? But it's in great condition. Rick shrugged, completely indifferent. Sentimental value doesn't add dollars, sir. It's just how the market works. Linda's hands trembled as she clutched the framed photo closer. Her voice broke. But it was our son's car. He passed away. For the first time, Daniel saw pure grief wash over her face. And Rick, he didn't even blink. I'm sorry for your loss, ma'am, but business is business. Take it or leave it. Daniel felt rage simmering in his chest. This wasn't just a bad deal. This was disrespect. This was predatory. This was racism, masked as business. And Rick didn't care. Daniel took a step forward, his voice calm, but laced with steel. Excuse me, but what's going on here? Rick turned, clearly irritated by the interruption. Sir, this doesn't concern you. Daniel smirked. Oh, I think it does. Daniel took a slow, deliberate step forward, keeping his calm demeanor intact despite the rage bubbling beneath the surface. $1,500? He repeated, shaking his head in disbelief. He let out a small chuckle. That's robbery. Rick Larson rolled his eyes. Sir, if you're not looking to buy, I suggest you stay out of this. Daniel ignored him. He turned to Harold and Linda, their worried expressions breaking his heart. The elderly couple had already lost their son, and now this man was trying to cheat them out of the last piece of him they had left. I'll give you $5,000 for it, Daniel said, his voice firm. The dealership fell silent. Linda gasped. Oh no, young man, we couldn't possibly accept that. It would not feel right. Harold looked at Daniel with cautious eyes. Son, that's an awfully generous offer. You sure about that? Daniel gave them a reassuring smile. It's not just a car. It's a legacy. And I believe legacies should be honored, not exploited. Rick's face turned beet red. He slammed a hand on the desk. That's not how this works. Daniel turned to him, completely unfazed. Oh? And why is that, Rick? Rick scoffed, stepping forward as if trying to intimidate Daniel. You don't just throw out numbers like that. Trade-in values are set by the market, and this car, it's barely worth what I'm offering. Daniel crossed his arms, studying Rick carefully. You mean it's worth more, but you're trying to cheat them. Rick's nostrils flared. That's business. Daniel chuckled, but there was no humor in it. No, that's greed. A few employees standing nearby shifted uncomfortably. It was clear they had seen Rick pull this move before, but no one had ever challenged him like this. Rick's jaw tightened. Listen, buddy, I don't know who you think you are, but I run this dealership. And in my dealership, I decide how deals are made. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Your dealership? Rick's lips curled into a mocking smirk. Yeah, that's right. I make the rules here. And if you think you can just come in here and... Daniel took a slow, confident step closer. You run this place? Rick's words caught in his throat. Something in Daniel's voice, the way he spoke with absolute authority. It sent a chill down his spine. The smug expression on Rick's face faltered for the first time. The employees in the showroom were watching closely now. Some of them exchanged glances, sensing something big was about to happen. Daniel tilted his head slightly. His voice dropped, calm but commanding. You sure about that? Rick swallowed hard. Who even are you? Daniel smirked. Oh, you'll find out soon enough. And at that moment, Rick had no idea he had just made the biggest mistake of his career. Rick crossed his arms over his chest, his expression twisting into frustration. His eyes bore into Daniel with thinly veiled contempt. You think you can just walk in here and throw money around like you own the place? He sneered. Daniel chuckled softly, shaking his head. Oh, Rick. That's exactly what I'm doing. Rick let out a sharp laugh, mocking. Right. Sure. And I'm the mayor of this town. He turned toward the employees watching. You believe this guy? Walking in here, trying to act like he runs the damn place? The employees looked at each other, some shifting uncomfortably. Others had already picked up on something Rick clearly hadn't. Daniel reached into his back pocket, pulling out his wallet. He flipped it open slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a sleek black business card. Rick snorted. Oh, what now? You got a discount card for some other dealership? Daniel held it up between two fingers. The gold-embossed lettering gleamed under the showroom lights. Daniel Reev, CEO and founder Reev Automotive Group. Silence. Rick's face lost all color. His smirk disappeared. His arms slowly fell to his sides. The entire dealership froze. Employees stopped pretending to work. The few customers inside, especially the black couple Rick had tried to cheat earlier, stared in shock. The black couple exchanged knowing looks. They had suspected something was different about Daniel. Rick blinked, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. Daniel tilted his head, his voice dangerously calm. Rick, I own this dealership. Rick staggered back a step. Well, wait, that's not possible. He snatched the card out of Daniel's hand, staring at it like it was a cruel trick. But the truth was staring him right in the face. Daniel smirked. Oh, it's very possible. A young salesman, Chris, spoke up hesitantly. Wait, the Daniel Reev? Like, the guy who built Reev Automotive? Daniel turned to him, giving a small nod. The one and only. Chris whistled low. Damn. A few employees murmured among themselves. Others started to smirk, amused at watching Rick flounder. Rick's entire body tensed. I didn't know, no one told me. Daniel raised an eyebrow. You didn't know? Huh. So, if I wasn't the owner, you wouldn't have a problem scamming people? Rick's mouth snapped shut. Daniel let the silence stretch. Then, his expression hardened. Let's talk, Rick. And for the first time since meeting Daniel, Rick was terrified. Rick stumbled backward, eyes darting around the room, searching for someone, anyone, to back him up. No one did. I didn't know, he stammered, his voice suddenly unsure. I didn't realize. Daniel took a slow step forward, his gaze razor-sharp. The entire dealership watched. Employees, customers, everyone. That's the problem, Rick, Daniel said, voice cool but firm. You didn't think twice before cheating these people, because to you, they weren't worth thinking about. Rick shook his head furiously. I was just doing my job. Chris, the young black salesman, scoffed loudly from the side. No, Rick. You were doing your version of the job. Daniel turned to him. Explain. Chris hesitated, then took a step forward, gathering courage. Sir, Rick always does this. He tells us to overcharge black customers. A murmur rippled through the room. Chris continued, voice steadier. If a black couple walks in, he makes us add on hidden fees. He tells us to push higher interest rates even when they qualify for better ones. And if they ask questions, he pressures them until they walk away frustrated, so he doesn't have to deal with them. Daniel's jaw tightened. Rick whirled on Chris. You little... Daniel held up a hand. Enough. Rick froze, teeth clenched. Daniel slowly turned, facing every employee. Is this true? Silence. Then, Tim, an older white salesman, cleared his throat. Yeah, he admitted quietly. We've all seen it. Rick's face twisted in rage. You're lying. Chris shook his head. You know I'm not. Daniel exhaled slowly. He had all the proof he needed. His eyes locked back onto Rick. You're fired. The room fell silent. Rick blinked. His mouth opened, then closed. His skin paled. Wait. Daniel. Let's talk about this. Daniel's voice was like steel. There's nothing to talk about. Rick took a desperate step forward. This is a mistake. I've been running this dealership for years. I make you money. Daniel tilted his head. At what cost? Rick's face twisted. You can't just fire me. Daniel crossed his arms. I just did. The employees stared, watching history unfold. Rick gritted his teeth. Fine, you'll regret this. Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. No, Rick. The only person regretting something today is you. Security stepped forward. Rick hesitated, then stormed toward the exit. Before he left, he turned back one last time, hatred burning in his eyes. You just ruined your own dealership. Daniel smirked. No, Rick, I just saved it. As Rick disappeared through the doors, the room erupted. Employees exhaled, some cheering, others just relieved. Chris turned to Daniel. Thank you, sir. You have no idea how long we've been waiting for this. Daniel gave him a small nod. Now let's fix this place. The internet caught fire within hours. Black CEO exposes racist car dealer, on the spot. They cheated black customers, until he stepped in. Undercover boss catches racist sales manager red-handed. The headlines spread like wildfire across social media. News outlets picked up the story, and soon, thousands of people were watching the footage of Daniel firing Rick on the spot. The comments section exploded. Finally! Someone holding these racist dealers accountable. Black-owned businesses deserve our support. I'm taking my money to Reev Automotive. Rick got what he deserved. Imagine how many people he scammed before this. By the next morning, something incredible happened. Black customers flooded the dealership. Daniel arrived early, expecting a few extra visitors. But nothing like this. A line of people wrapped around the building, waiting for their chance to step inside. Chris, the young salesman, whistled low as he looked out the showroom window. Boss, you might want to see this. Daniel stepped forward, stunned. Families, young couples, elders. All black customers, all eager to buy. Tim, the older salesman, shook his head in disbelief. I've worked here for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like this. One customer, a black father with his teenage son, approached Daniel directly. Mr. Reev, he said, gripping Daniel's hand firmly. I saw the video. I've never trusted dealerships before, but today I brought my son here so he can see what honest black business looks like. Daniel felt that. He patted the man's shoulder. We're going to take care of you, sir. More people kept pouring in. Many weren't even here to buy a car. They just wanted to shake Daniel's hand, thank him, support black business. But while Reev Automotive thrived, white-owned dealerships panicked. Across town, other dealerships scrambled. Managers huddled in back offices, trying to figure out how to fix their image. One dealership owner, Michael Langford, called an emergency meeting. Langford slammed his fist on the table. This is a disaster, a nervous salesman swallowed. Sir, Reev Automotive is trending everywhere. Customers are canceling their appointments and going to them instead. Langford's jaw tightened. Then we lower our prices, undercut them. Another manager hesitated. Sir, it's not about price, it's about trust. People don't just want a better deal, they want to know they won't get scammed. Langford's face turned red. Then find a way to spin this. If we don't stop this momentum, we're screwed. But deep down, he knew the truth. Reev Automotive wasn't just selling cars. Daniel Reev had started a movement. Across town, Michael Langford was furious. The owner of Langford Motors, one of the biggest white-owned dealerships in the city, had just watched his profits collapse overnight. He threw his phone across his desk, veins bulging in his neck. What the hell is happening? He barked at his sales manager, Jason. Jason hesitated. It's Reev Automotive, sir. Ever since Daniel exposed Rick, black customers are refusing to come here. They're all going to him instead. Langford gritted his teeth. We need to stop this before it spreads. If black folks start realizing they've been getting screwed all these years, we'll lose them forever. Jason nodded quickly. I already have an idea. We slash our prices, undercut Reev Automotive. That'll pull them back. Langford's lips curled into a grin. Good. Make it happen. Within hours, Langford Motors launched a full-scale attack. We beat any price, guaranteed. Thinking about buying from Reev Automotive? Bring us their offer and we'll beat it. Lowest financing rates in town, don't overpay. Their phones blew up with calls. Customers who had been heading to Reev Automotive paused. "Langford Motors is offering me the same car for $2,000 less," one caller said. "I'd love to support a black business, but money is money," another admitted. Daniel immediately took notice. His employees looked worried. Even Chris, the young black salesman, scratched his head. "Boss, what do we do? They're stealing our customers." Daniel smirked. "No, Chris. They're just making one big mistake." Chris frowned. "What mistake?" Daniel leaned forward, tapping the desk. "They think price is the only thing that matters. But they forgot one thing. Trust." Chris's eyes lit up. "They're using tricks, aren't they?" Daniel nodded. "Bingo. Lower prices mean nothing if they trap customers in hidden fees. And guess what?" Chris grinned. "We're about to expose them." Daniel grabbed his phone and dialed Langford directly. The racist CEO answered immediately. Langford chuckled. "Reev, I was wondering when you'd call." Daniel smirked. "You think you're smart, huh?" Langford scoffed. "I think I'm winning. Your customers are already walking away. Money talks." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Nah, money lies. But receipts? They tell the truth." Langford's amusement faded. "What the hell does that mean?" Daniel's smirk widened. "You'll find out soon enough." He hung up. Chris looked at him, eyes full of excitement. "You got a plan, don't you?" Daniel's smile turned sharp. "Oh yeah, time to show the city what Langford Motors is really about." The war had just begun. Langford thought he had won. His undercut Reev automotive strategy was in full swing, and for a brief moment, it looked like it was working. Black customers started calling. Some even walked into Langford Motors, tempted by the lower prices. But then, Daniel flipped the script. That morning, Reev Automotive launched an explosive campaign. "Don't fall for the trap. Read the fine print." Langford Motors exposed the hidden fees they don't want you to see. "Know someone shopping at Langford? Show them this before it's too late." Daniel's team gathered real contracts from past customers who had been scammed by Langford Motors. Customers were being promised low prices, but in reality, Langford added hidden dealer fees, inflated interest rates, and locked them into bad financing deals. The $2,000 discount? A lie. By the time customers finished signing, they were paying more than at Reev Automotive. And now, Daniel was making sure everyone saw the truth. Black customers flooded social media. "Langford Motors tried to trick me, but Reev Automotive showed me the truth. These scammers added $4,000 to my contract after I signed. Thanks to Daniel, I caught it in time. Boycott Langford Motors. They prey on black customers." It spread like wildfire. The very customers Langford tried to lure, they turned against him. Outside Langford Motors, protesters gathered. Signs filled the air. "No more scams. Stop cheating black customers. We deserve honest deals." Langford watched from inside his office, hands clenched into fists. His staff panicked. Customers were walking out mid-deal, canceling contracts. And then, the final nail in the coffin. One of Langford's own employees, a former salesman, went live on Instagram. "Y'all want to know the truth about Langford Motors," he said, holding up dealership contracts. "We were trained to trick black customers. We pushed high interest rates on people who didn't understand the fine print. We made sure they paid more than they had to." It went viral. Within hours, Langford Motors was trending, for all the wrong reasons. Customers who had already bought from Langford, they started demanding refunds. By the end of the day, sales had stopped completely. Langford stormed into his office, breathing heavily. He grabbed his phone, dialed Daniel. You set this up," Langford spat. "You destroyed me." "Daniel?" He just smiled. "No, Langford," he said smoothly. "You destroyed yourself." And with that, Langford Motors was finished. 1 year later, everything had changed. Langford Motors? Gone. The once booming dealership that had spent years cheating black customers now sat empty, the doors locked, the windows covered in dust. The final blow? A lawsuit filed by former customers who had been scammed. Langford tried to fight it, but the evidence Daniel exposed. Undeniable. His empire crumbled. Meanwhile, Reev Automotive was thriving. The #1 black-owned dealership in the state. Customers first, honesty always. Black business is winning, and we're just getting started. Word had spread far beyond Atlanta. Black customers from other states drove in just to buy their cars from Daniel. For the first time, they trusted a dealership. Inside Reev Automotive, Daniel sat at his desk, looking over the monthly reports. Record-breaking sales, more black employees hired, more honest deals made. Chris, the young salesman who had exposed Rick, was now the top-selling employee. Tim, the veteran salesman, trained new hires on integrity, not deception. The dealership wasn't just successful, it was a movement. Then, Harold and Linda walked in. Their faces glowed with happiness. Daniel immediately stood, smiling. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter," he greeted warmly. "It's good to see you." Harold extended his hand, shaking Daniel's firmly. "We had to come back, to show you something." Outside, parked in the lot, their son's car, fully restored. The black sedan gleamed under the sunlight. Fresh paint, polished rims, engine humming like new. Linda wiped at her tears. "We couldn't believe it when you said you'd restore it. But you did." Daniel nodded, emotion tightening in his chest. "Your son's legacy deserved better than a trade-in lot." Harold exhaled, eyes shining. "You proved something, Daniel." Daniel tilted his head. "What's that?" Harold smiled, voice steady. "That black business isn't just surviving, it's winning." Daniel's chest swelled with pride. This wasn't just about one dealership, one car, one battle. This was about change, about proving that black entrepreneurs could take on the system and win. As the sun set, Daniel stood in front of his dealership, arms crossed, watching as more customers walked in. Black families, young couples, people who had once been afraid of being cheated. Not anymore. Because now, they had a place that was built for them, a place where justice had won. And this was just the beginning.